Hey, folks, my guest today is Rahul Sidhu. He's known as Silicon Valley's expert on policing, currently works with over 50 local law enforcement agencies across the continent on police reform initiatives. He's the CEO and co-founder of SpirdTech, spelled SPIDR. He created the world's first automated customer service platform for public safety agencies. Rahul, are you ready to take us to the top?
Sure am.
All right, what does that mean? Who are the customers of policing agencies?
Well, I mean, anybody who is interacting with a police officer or deputy sheriff at a local law enforcement level is essentially a customer. If you're paying taxes, or you're basically, whether you're calling 911 because you need help, or you're a victim of crime, or even if you're getting pulled over because you're basically paying for them to keep the road safe too, you're technically a customer of that agency.
Mm-hmm. So who's paying you then?
Well, the agencies themselves, so the cities and counties, pay SpirdTech for the software that allows them to provide better customer service. And that customer service comes in the form of automated texts and emails that go out to the customers of that agency to keep them informed, let them know what's going on with the status of their case, their 911 call, their traffic collision, et cetera. But it also goes out in the form of mobile-friendly surveys that are being sent to people who are interacting with those police officers, so that those agencies can gather feedback every time someone interacts with them that can better improve their operations.
And why do they need to use you for this versus sort of an instant of Twilio's, SMS texting API?
Well, in order for this process to be automated, you need to have a basically all-in-one system that integrates with the data systems that they're using today. For me to be able, for our platform to be able to send out a survey to someone who just recently interacted with a police officer because they called 911 or they were a victim of crime or whatever the circumstances, we need to be able to intelligently connect to the dispatch systems that they have, or the records management systems that they have, so that those messages can go out, and that every single survey that comes back can be attached to an interaction, which we have a record of. So all of those surveys, for example, we have a plan of action, because we know it's in reference to this officer, this 911 call, this report, whatever the circumstances, this traffic stop, because we have that integration in place. And you can't just do that with, like, let's say SurveyMonkey or Twilio by itself. You have to build a platform that works with ththese configurations and then uses those integrations to do this automatically.
Understood. And what are these agencies paying you per month on average to use the technology?
Well, we do yearly contracts and in some case multi-year contracts. The pricing is based off of how large the agencies are in terms of their sworn size is the term. Sworn size would be how many police officers or deputy sheriffs they have, work in the fields, et cetera. To be able to get a sense of how much data is going to go in and out, how many customers are they likely interacting with on a daily basis, and they pay an annual fee based on that, and that covers the entirety of the platform. Or they can purchase it kind of a la carte, module by module. They can decide we only want to send messages to 911 callers or crime victims, for example. They can decide that they want to specifically do surveys, or they want to have a module on their website which allows people to go and track the status of their case directly from the police website. They can pick and choose, or they can take the old platform, and that's what basically how we set up the annual fee.
So I'm going to force you into an average here, Rahul, just to help us stay focused. So what would an average contract be for the year?
Well, I guess you'd say at a smaller agency of 100 folks, it could be somewhere between $10,000 to $40,000 a year, depending on how much of the platform that they wanted.
Okay. So you upsell based off number of seats. There's also feature-based upsell, and then also just utility-based upsell based off number of customers in that jurisdiction.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily seat-based, because, they can't go, we're only going to give this to 10 cops or 100 cops. It's based on the entire size of their agency.
So they can't just buy it and test it with 10 cops. It's all or nothing.
We do pilot programs for larger agencies that, have 500 to 1,000 plus cops, where we'll do like a 3-month kind of custom-based trial period at a lower cost. But generally speaking, no, it's based on the size of the agency, because the amount of data is going to be the same either way.
I see. Okay. What's the backstory here? When did you launch?
Well, we started the company in 2015. My background is in public safety. I formerly worked as a paramedic and also police officer on the East and West Coast. So I had a better understanding of what it was like to be a police officer and how to provide that type of customer service. I also had the technology background, having a startup in high school that kind of helped pay my way through college. So I combined my love for technology and public safety in 2015 with two co-founders, one who was also in policing and another one who was on the technical side of things. And we launched for our first customer in 2016. And ever since then, we've been growing considerably.
And tell me about first year revenue. Do you remember how much you did in 2016?
Yeah, I can tell you wholeheartedly. It was a big fat goose egg in 2016, because in the beginning we had to have law enforcement agencies to take a chance on us, they weren't willing to pay. It wasn't until 2017 that we started seeing any revenue, and it was just a couple of contracts.
Mm-hmm. What was 2017 revenue? Your first year revenue? I'm always curious.
It was less than 100K a year.
Okay, less than 100K. And what did you learn from that first sort of 100K? Were you too cheap, too expensive? Sales motion longer than you thought? Shorter? What surprised you?
Well, I mean, focus on doing a couple things really well, I think is the of life. I mean, just everyone knows this lesson, but it was just really, shown to us that doing a couple things really well is more important than doing a bunch of things kind of okay, just to try and catch as many customers as you can. So I wouldn't say that pricing was necessarily an issue. It was more so just making sure that we found that what we were doing is really good for those particular customers, and then trusting that referral process and the network effects of that, especially in regional gov tech, will work out as intended. And that's essentially what ended up happening.
So first customers, 2017, you learned from them. How many customers are you now working with today?
We have over 60 different agencies across the United States and Canada.
Okay. And how many paid seats are there for officers?
I couldn't give you the most recent sworn number off the top of my head, but I can say it's in the tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. Okay. And now can I multiply that? Can I take those 60 customers times call like a $2,000 a month average contract size? You guys are about 120 grand a month right now in revenue, something like that?
It's certainly a little bit more than that.
A little more than that. Okay. I mean, have you guys broken a $2 million run rate at this point, or is it something you're focused on doing this year?
We have.
You have. Okay. Okay. So a couple of questions on capitalization here. There were 2 years that you were essentially pre-revenue. You started in 2015, first customers 2017. How did you fund yourself?
We actually went through the Techstars program in late 2015. Techstars in New York. It was the horizontal program with Alex Isgold and KJ Singh. From there, we did a pre-seed round of about $1 million with Winklevoss Capital and a couple other folks. Buddy Greg Schroy, Taylor Adams, No Name Ventures.
What year was that? Million?
2016.
Okay.
And then in 2017, towards the end, we raised a proper seed round of about $2.5 million. It was priced with Alphabet, Sidewalk Labs, Birchmere Ventures, Stage Ventures, Heartland, and a few other more institutional sized funds with repeat investors and a couple of strategic angels as well. And from there, we just started raising inside rounds to continue our growth.
In 2017, that 2.5 million, that was your first priced round. What valuation did you negotiate?
I can't actually mention that right now.
That was like 5 years ago, man. Come on. You can't talk about the valuation from 2017.
Well, what I'll tell you this is, we were recently acquired actually about a month and a half ago. So I'm still constantly figuring out what I can and can't say.
I see. Okay. That explains. That explains things.
Yeah.
That explains things. Okay. So you raised, let's talk pre-acquisition here for a second. So the total you raised pre-acquisition was about 3.5 million, or you did another inside round before that?
Pre-acquisition was about 3.5 plus another about $1 million. So it's closer to about 4.5 in total money in.
Okay. That's a big moment to decide to sell. Why did you decide to sell?
We got a couple offers and we didn't really want to sell. And I basically told the folks that we were talking to, here's the only way we would do a deal. It would have to be structured in a way that allows us to have upside to continue moving forward in the business, et cetera, so that we can all kind of, including all of our shareholders, can enjoy this growth now that we're at this inflection point. And lo and behold, the buyer of the company said, okay. And they put something together that actually made sense and was what we asked for. And then they never changed the goalposts. We've gone through processes like that in the past where potential buyers, come up with an interesting deal and then, okay, we might entertain this. And then down the line that ends up changing considerably. This was a class act buyer, strategic. And I can tell you right now, it's a public safety company called Versaterm. And they stuck to their words and said, hey, this is what we'll do. It was what we asked for and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were doing, or you're north of 160 a month today in terms of revenue, where were you exactly a year ago? So we can calculate a growth rate.
Well, about a year ago, we were in the throes of kind of coming out of the super scary municipal budgetary impacts of COVID. And we're starting to realize, okay, you know what, we can still make things happen and we can still sell. We had a major customer come on board, a major city that almost doubled our revenue overnight in Q1 of 2020. And then coming into Q3 of 2020, we saw continuous growth that was a little bit more quarter over quarter than we had seen previously in the year before. And we think it would have been better without COVID, of course. But then that's when we started realizing that, from a municipal standpoint, which is where we make most of our money, we're going to be okay. Like these cities are not going bankrupt. In fact, in some cases, they have surpluses of cash. They compensated, from a budgetary standpoint. Plus, the stimulus was coming. We realized that in Q4, with how the election turned out, that some of these cities are going to have a little bit more money than they know what to do with, and that changed things for us a little bit more. So we've just been growing pretty much steadily quarter over quarter. And I will say that the years prior, we had 5x year over year growth pretty easily. But I mean, those are sort of numbers. That was a very long answer to a very simple question. If you're doing 160 like today, what were you doing exactly a year ago in this same month, right? Did you double year over year or something different? I just can't provide. I have to act like a politician. I can't provide you a simple question when I'm kind of stuck post acquisition with what I can and can't say on behalf of those numbers.
Well, you just shared that you're above $2 million in revenue. I imagine if you can share that, you can share a growth rate.
You got to pick and choose how much of a range you're willing to give before you get in trouble.
Okay, fair enough. Got it. So you can share that you're above a $2 million run rate, but you can't share what growth was over the past 12 months. Tell me a little bit more about capitalization. I mean, typically once you raise, especially that 2.5 million in 2017, you've got to go. I mean, you're on the VC track. If you're not raising every 18 months, another institutional round, it's a bad signal to the market. You guys didn't do another traditional round after that. You raised from insiders. I mean, was this an acquihire? Was this a flash sale?
No. In fact, we had the potential of competing term sheet. We had a term sheet for Series A. I mean, we actually ended up turning things down because we felt like this was a very, very rare type of acquisition that we could have easily walked away from. We had reached profitability last year as well, so we didn't necessarily need venture money to continue growing. Of course, we wanted venture money if we were going to grow at a pace that we felt like would keep us optimized. But it was you have
no choice. That's the problem with raising VC. If you're not growing fast, you made that choice the second you took your first dollar of outside revenue. So even if you're profitable, if you're not growing as a VC-backed company, you're still cooked, and you've got to take an exit like this to get out of a bad situation.
Well, I think I would push back on that a little bit. I think it's a couple of variables that basically make that happen, that pressure happen. It depends on the type of VC money you took. If you take VC money that from micro VCs and angels and folks that are pretty much reasonable with how they expect the returns and when they're going to expect the returns and give you that flexibility, then it's a little bit less pressure. If you're kind of stuck in this, we got, big institutional VCs and this is what it's going to take to make shareholders happy. We've given up this amount of control. This is what the expectation looks like. Then the pressure actually ends up building. But for us, got to a point where, we'd taken a couple rounds of funding. We had very flexible and reasonable venture capitalists who knew they got into a GovTech company. And they were willing to, kind of go both ways. Of course, the pressure comes to, do you want to optimize? We didn't have to take an exit. We could have gone the VC route, and we were growing fast enough with the money that we had that we could have continued to organically grow and still see growth rates of 2 to 3x year over year. But if we wanted to spend that money up front, to basically, instead of double our sales force, to triple, quadruple it, go into let's say a fire vertical or a court vertical, of course, that's no way to do that without venture capital. And ultimately, the other aspect of for what we're doing, going organically at the time versus, basically going the VC route was some things you can't necessarily do faster. In government, we were able to hack the sales cycle quite a bit, but there were certain things we just had to wait out with COVID and budgeting, et cetera, et cetera. So it did delay when we were going to raise, but it didn't have as much of an impact on our decision as you're suggesting.
Got it. Fair enough. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, favorite book?
Sapiens.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
There are many, but I don't think I could tell you one that I find to be more interesting than the others.
Great. Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the business?
Just your standard Google collaboration tools, I think, get you 80% of the way.
And number 4, how many hours of sleep did you get last night?
About 7.
7. And what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Single in the sense that I'm not married, but happily in a relationship.
And okay, so no kids. And how old are you?
I'm 32.
32. Last question. Something you wish you knew when you were 20.
That it was going to take me longer to get to where I am today. And I should be okay with that and trust the journey.
Guys, there you have it. SpirdTech working with police municipalities to help and make sure they stay close to customers. The folks living nearby that they're protecting. Launched in 2015, pre-revenue for 2 years, did 100 grand in sales in 2017. Also raised a $2.5 million seed that year. Ended up raising about $4.55 million before exiting here last month in 2021, north of a $2 million run rate as they look to continue to scale with their new partner. So thank you for taking it. Rahul, thank you for taking us to the top.
You got it.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers. They try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.